friends, welcome to The Week with me, Comrade Fatso. And today we're doing an interview with a very special man. He is a Twitter man, a lawyer, and an activist. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Doug Coltart. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
So, firstly, Doug, we hear this nickname about you, Comrade Pantsula. Apparently, you dance at rallies, at any public function. Why this love for dancing?
I think anyone who has grown up in Zim, I think there's dancing in our blood, you know. But for me, I just enjoy. I just enjoy. Especially at a Magamba concert, I can't hold myself back.
Now, onto a more serious topic. We always see you out there attacking our government on Twitter. And they've done many great things. Recently, they even legalized the industrial production of marijuana, which we here at The Week we very, very much support. So we're trying to understand, why are you always out there attacking the government?
Well, I don't think maybe it comes across like I'm attacking the government, but for me, I'm someone who stands for justice. That's something which is really core to who I am. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm a lawyer because being a lawyer is a way of fighting for justice. But I'm also aware that the law is sometimes quite a narrow tool, and so I also get involved in other ways, whether that's on social media, using that platform to speak out, whether exercising our rights to demonstrate whatever rights we have. But for me, it all comes down to fighting against human rights abuses and injustice. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, Doug, you're quite a big guy on Twitter. You've got like 130,000 followers on Twitter. And one thing you've definitely got a lot of is internet trolls. From Matigari to Nick Mangwana to just general unnamed egg-faced CIO operatives. What would be your advice on internet trolls?
Well, number one, employ an entire Russian troll farm to go after them on your behalf. But if you can't do that, number two, don't feed the trolls. Don't give them what they want. They want you to feed them. Number three, don't let it affect you. Just move on. And number four, if there's someone who shows an openness to engaging, then engage politely.
So, Doug, what do you think is the solution to the Zimbabwe crisis? I mean, do we need to go out and join the MDC on the streets as they're calling for? Do we need to go and join ED in dialogue? I mean, what do you think is the way forward for Zim?
So I do think that dialogue is a critical component to us putting behind the oppression and the violence of the past towards, in my view, some sort of a national transitional mechanism that is inclusive and takes us through to a new and different era where we can implement real reforms. But in order to get there, I do think that we need to exercise the rights that are given to us in the Constitution, which includes the right to protest, which is an important mechanism to peacefully bring some players who we need at the table. We need everyone to come to that table of dialogue, but some who are refusing to really get to the table, to have a real dialogue about how do we get ourselves out of that mess. I think that protest can be a really important tool for doing that.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically telling the youth to come out and demonstrate on the streets. You heard it from this lawyer. So if you get out and demonstrate, he will come and represent you in court pro bono. So talking of lawyers, why are there so many lawyers in the Zim struggle? Is yourself, Chamisa, Tendai Biti? I mean, is the Zimbabwe struggle not being hijacked by lawyers?
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of people like myself and a lot of other lawyers, I think, particularly choose law because we are people who care about issues of human rights and injustice and that sort of thing. And so it's natural to see a lot of lawyers involved in those kind of struggles. But of course, I mean, it's important to say that there are so many other people from different sectors and different walks of life who each play their role. And I'm someone who really believes that everyone plays an important role, from the teacher, to the nurse, to the lawyer, to the comedians, that we all have a role that we can and must play in the struggle for a better Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm. So then why do we see opposition lawyers representing ZANU-PF? I mean, you've seen Job Sikala, Mahere, Maduku and others representing ZANU-PF in court. Why?
Yeah, so I mean, I think lawyers sometimes, there's a dynamic where you operate as a professional, and no one would ever question and put it this way, an MDC doctor treating a ZANU-PF patient, right? So to that degree, I think lawyers sometimes see themselves just as a profession. But having said that, I do think that politicians who are also lawyers do need to be careful about sometimes the message that they put across, particularly when it comes to cases involving corruption, etc. Mm-hmm. I've represented a number of ZANU-PF aligned people, but it has only ever been in clear human rights cases where their rights to freedom of expression were being violated. This is during the Magamba era. And so for me, it was a principled issue that I'm someone who stands for human rights. And so if human rights are being violated, it doesn't matter who the person is whose rights are being violated. We have a duty to stand up for human rights.
Well, you've given me a great idea. Next time I'm taken to court, I'm going to ask Patrick Chinamasa and Paul Mangwana to represent me. How does that sound? It could work, eh?
Yeah, no, I mean...
and then I'd have Energy Mutodi doing my PR, running my Twitter handle. I mean, it could be an unlikely union of comrades. Now we're in the multiple choice round. Doug Coltart, Zim Dancehall or Sungura?
I think I will have to go with Sungura.
Because of your dancing ways. Next one, Dynamos or Highlanders?
I'm a Bulawayo boy, so of course I have to go Boso. But my adopted Harare team is Caps United.
Hey. Finally, Unplugged or Madirano?
Madirano.
Tapinda. You recently won a court case against ZBC about their unfair coverage of elections. What does that mean for future elections in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, so I mean, the issues around media freedoms have been a huge issue for our elections going back a long time, and it's something that observers have consistently criticized us for. So, it was a big victory, and we hoped that it would lay the foundation for, a more free media environment, particularly the state-owned media, which has specific obligations in the Constitution. However, we've just found out today that ZBC have now appealed against that ruling from the High Court, which is quite disappointing, given that all we are really asking them to do is to comply with the Constitution. But so now we wait and see whether that appeal will be heard, and if so, what happens in the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. So still talking about court, there's this famous photo of you carrying this stack of papers to the Concord. Now, were those B11s, or was that just just empty things?
No, I mean, there was so much confusion around that photo. I was actually just carrying the court papers, the founding affidavits of Chamisa's petition.
So fake V11s. Comrades, you heard it here first. They were fake V11s. He was actually just carrying some files that were useless.
So I mean, since you've raised it, I think it's important to explain. Though Chamisa's case was actually not primarily predicated on the V11s, and with very good reason. So I had a fairly small role in that case, but the role that I played was I compiled the affidavits of polling agents from all across the country who had been assaulted, raped, beaten up at polling stations, all to do with V11s. Either being told to change V11s or being chased away from polling stations before the V11s were compiled. So it meant that the V11s were not really a useful source of data, in fact, which is why Tabani Mpofu called them the poison chalice. And so the election petition was primarily predicated on the array of breaches or clear breaches of the Constitution and the Electoral Act throughout the electoral process, and the incredible analysis done by Dr. Utumba, the same analyst who was involved in Odinga's successful case in Kenya, who proved that there were literally tens of thousands of votes which were totally unaccounted for in the presidential election. So there you have it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing in Zimbabwe, dead people can vote too, and I think dead people should have rights too, so Pambiri is unfair. From one Western-sponsored regime change agent to another, tell us about this regime change agenda of yours, comrade. You're always painted in the state media as being pro-regime change. Saka, please enlighten us about this regime change that you're pushing.
That's the nature of the work we do, fighting for human rights and justice. The regime will always try to spin it, the propaganda as regime change. But the irony is that, in a normal country, in a democratic country, regimes change all the time through the electoral process. But it's when a regime refuses to allow the electoral process to run its proper course and uses violence and oppression and rigging, then that's when people naturally start to look at saying, how do we actually bring about positive change in the country. Mm-hmm. I guess that's where it comes from.
So Doug Coltart has said that is about positive regime change. What does a new Zimbabwe look like to you, Doug?
It's a good question. I think for me, it's a Zimbabwe where every single person's human rights are respected, protected, promoted, and fulfilled. That's a little phrase that we use in human rights law to connect the ongoing advancement of human rights for all. And that's everything. That's not just political rights that people often think of. It's also socioeconomic rights. The right to eat, to food, to be free from poverty. So that's really the vision that I'm fighting for.
And given the clampdown at the moment on civic organizations, on activists, how do you think young people can meaningfully contribute to this dream of a new Zimbabwe?
I think there are so many ways that ordinary people and young people can get involved. I'm a real believer in the power of ordinary people to effect change through non-violent action, and Fridays is a potential opportunity for that. Of course, I have to emphasize the importance of non-violence, which is important for young people to understand, because I think sometimes young people think it's more radical and you're more likely to bring change with violence, but actually around the world we've seen that it's non-violent action that is actually more strategic and more effective at bringing about a positive advancement in our societies.
Mm-hmm. Doug, you can only answer this question with yes or no.
Comrade,
are you going to join the MDC? Because your dad is there already. Are you going to feel like home, man? Are you going to join the MDC? Yes or no?
Comrade.
Okay, go beyond yes or no.
I think that political parties and political activism is a really important role in any society, and the MDC has a really important role to play. Personally, at present, I see my role primarily on the legal front. And through advocating, through mobilizing citizens from a non-partisan perspective. Now, where things dovetail with where the MDC we feel are advocating effectively for positive change, of course, I will happily support those efforts. But it's at least at this stage, it's not my primary focus.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that the MDC needs more lawyers. Thanks for joining us on the show, Doug Coltart.
Cool, man.
I have been Comrade Fatso. He has been Doug Coltart. Thank you and Futsek.